Hello, Allie. Here we
Hello.
are. How you doing?
Doing good. We're in our matching button-down striped shirts
You
because
sure
it's
are.
the vibe today. And we're talking about production. We're talking about the big day. The big day has arrived. You've done all of your shoot prep. You've crossed all your T's. You've dotted your I's. You've prepared to the high heavens. And
Hmm.
now you rock up and hope that it all goes to plan. And spoiler alert, it doesn't.
I would bet money that there has never been a production in the world that has gone exactly to a T.
No,
The plan.
no, no. So tell us what kind of the days and hours leading up to production, what are those
Mhm.
final prep days like? Because those kind of exist in a category of their own. They're not really pre-production at that stage. They're kind of, the slow slide into production, if you will.
In the final days, the final prep days before cameras start rolling, that's when gear is being picked up and final call sheets are being put together and the final shoot schedules are being locked in. And so the day before your first shoot day, before you start principal photography, is generally going to be a gear pickup day. The DP and sometimes the AC will work on the camera build and then test it. Some DPs have their own gear, some rent gear, some do a combination, like they'll have the body, but then they want a specific set of lenses that they'll rent. And so then they'll go build the camera, test it out, make sure everything's in working order, and check it out. And then the
Where are they checking it out from? Just for people who might not know.
Sure. From a rental house. On this particular shoot, we rented things from a couple of different rental houses. So NYC Camera was the name of the rental house that we got all of the camera rentals from. And then Matria is where we got all of the grip and electric we needed to supplement the the G&E that our gaffer was already providing. So that's really common that a lot of DPs and gaffers and your sound mixers will have their own gear that then you are renting from them as well, in addition to whatever their rate for labor is, but it often comes at a discount and sometimes they even throw it in for free.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but that tends to be another way um, that those crew positions make a little bit of extra money is by, they invest in having the equipment that they want to use and then charge to rent it. So on that day leading up to your first shoot date, those checkouts are happening, and then um, you'll have either a PA or, depending on the size of the shoot, uh, it varies who will be going and actually picking up that gear, but you want to have all your gear in hand at the very latest the day prior to your first shoot date. So you're not, it's not like someone's going to run and pick up gear the morning of that you start filming because you got a lot to do that day already. And
Mm-hmm.
so that should just be settled ahead of time. But you can really just, if you hire a PA that you trust that has a driver's license and a good record, you can just send them like a list of everywhere they got to go, what they're getting from those locations, who the contact is there, and just send them on their way and they'll go run and collect everything. And then once you wrap shooting, they will go and drop everything off and check it in at the rental houses where it's been picked up from.
Yeah. And I'll
Uh,
be honest, as the writer director, I'm not really paying attention to any of this. I'm like,
yeah.
I'm assuming that the crew and the gear will show up on time. And
Mhm.
you have other things to worry about as the director. Um, yeah.
Yeah, totally. Which I think is that's such a great call out because it's the director at this stage very much should not be worrying about any of that, but the producer needs to be incredibly on top of it to make sure that there's not some small but very essential piece of the puzzle that is missing once everybody shows up to set.
Mhm.
So yeah, it does become kind of two split focuses at that stage.
Yeah, definitely. And a very important document that goes out the night before the shoot to ensure that everybody knows what is happening and where and when is the call sheet.
Yes. So the day before you start filming, you don't want to send it out too far in advance because details can be changing up until, the afternoon before, just small details around call times and wrap times, et cetera. So, really the standard is that the afternoon before you start filming, either the AD or a production coordinator, depending on the size of your production, sometimes the producer, as I was doing in this case, will send out the call sheet. The call sheet includes every crew member and cast member that will be reporting to set that following day, their call times, aka what time they should be arriving to set, whether they're self-reporting or whether there's a production vehicle that'll be picking them up, everybody's contact information. It includes what time lunch is going to be, what the weather will be for that day, who your producers are, who your director is. There are there's kind of a standard template that you can easily search online and pull, that has just all of this key information broken out, and then it has a very high level rundown of what's being filmed that day. So what scenes, which characters are in those scenes, but at a very high level, because then the AD, production coordinator, again, whoever's sending out the call sheet will also send the shoot schedule for that following day along with the call sheet, and that has a much more detailed rundown of, um, each shot, when that shot is being filmed, so that there's a really clear order of operations for that day.
Yeah.
And then the person sending this information out sends it in an email on the first day of filming. It's nice to have that email serve as kind of a welcome email. If you haven't worked with this cast and crew before, introducing yourself as the AD, producer, again, whoever you are, sending any details around like where folks are supposed to show up, parking information, just like some nice words about, we're really excited about this project, great to have you on board, come to me with anything you might need, just to like get the important information out, but also humanize it a little bit. Like, we're making
Yeah.
movies, this is fun, let's, you know we're not robots.
And to set a vibe, right? It's
And
like
set a
you
vibe.
want to make sure everyone has the information and so they're prepared. So it's not already, it shouldn't feel chaotic when you get to set. Everyone should know
Mhm.
where they're going, what they're doing, and why. And also that the people in charge are kind, human, going
Mhm.
to ask how they are, going to say good morning, all of these things. I
Mhm.
think that was really important to both of us, was making sure that the set experience was a positive one, to the best of our ability, and sometimes things don't go as planned, but I think that was one of many reasons why we work well together, is that we both kind of value um just a good set vibe, and believe that that's how you get the best work. And that starts with before people even show up on the day.
Mhm. 100%.
So that's all leading up to the shoot. And then give us a quick rundown of our two kind of originally planned shoots.
Sure. Yeah. So this was originally going to be a 2-day shoot, and that was based on a number of factors, including the budget that was available to us. We had 3 locations total across shooting. And on our first day, we were filming at 2 different locations. The first was our hospital location that was a set in Sunset Park. And then we had a company move planned to push to the coffee shop where the coffee shop scenes were taking place. And then day three was we were filming at the park at Fort Greene Park. And that's really where the majority of the film does take place. That was our original 2 shoot days. It was ambitious. I think shooting at 2 different locations in one day is doable. but it's ambitious. You have to really stick to your schedule. And in this particular, on this particular project, um, that first location, the hospital set, was a complex, that was a complex setup for multiple reasons. That required the most set dressing. It was the location that had the most sort of intricate lighting setups and showed the most passage of time. And
Mhm.
so lighting setups between scenes were very important because we needed to show, just visually help the viewer to understand very quickly that time had passed. And one way to do that is to give the sense of different times of day. And it's, we're at a hospital. Obviously, that's an emotional place. There's some serious emotional work being done by the actors in these scenes. And so, I think hindsight is 2020, but starting with, there you can argue both ways as to why it's the right move or the wrong move to start with perhaps what are the most intense all around set of scenes. Because,
Mhm.
it's on the one hand, it's when everybody is their most energized and fired up, and it's nice to kind of get that stuff out of the way first. But it can also lead to, if you're running over, that's
Mhm.
where we were most likely to run over our allotted time, and we did. And so then, that ends up creating a domino effect of being pushing everything else back.
Yeah.
So the work came out beautifully. I'm really proud of it, but it was definitely, we ran into some we ran into some timing issues there that did have repercussions throughout filming. A big learning there is when you are putting together a shoot schedule, and usually that's an AD, or it's an AD and a producer in collaboration, and then they're conferring with very other important stakeholders on the shoot schedule, the director, the DP. I think in this case, in hindsight, knowing how intricate some of the lighting setups were, I would have also pulled the gaffer into the
Mhm.
conversation around this particular set of scenes to say, this is what I have. Is this enough time? Is this enough time for setups? Is this enough time to tweak lighting between setups, between scenes? And if not, let's talk about it.
Yeah.
For sure.
And I do think that's an important note because um I just think that's an important thing to say. Like it's okay to ask other people on your team, for their opinion. Like, yes, we are the director and the producer, but we are not, everyone has their own lane and we're not experts in every
Mm.
single piece of the production. So um yeah, talk to your crew, talk to your team, like ask them their opinion and be open to making changes to what you think is the best way forward.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. I think, um, and it's, you don't have to confer with every person at every turn, but for those very specific setups that require more or a lot from one particular department, like really getting, just working with them and understanding exactly what they need is going to go a long way.
Yeah. Yeah. And in the long run, I think that like we were saying a second ago, like that is collaboration. People want their voices to be heard. People want to do the best that they can possibly do at their craft. And so consulting them to figure out what the best way to approach something is from a time perspective or anything really is just further building that trust and building a set where people feel like their voice is heard, their work is respected, and ultimately everyone is working towards the same thing, which is making, the most beautiful movie possible.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Um, I will say, so kind of sticking in the schedule and learnings from how this schedule was built and then unfolded. And then I'd love to hear a little bit of any insights you have kind of on that and any other big learnings. Um, we ran behind at our first location
Mhm.
by a couple of hours.
Mhm.
We'll call it 3.
Yeah.
And then moving to our second location, we we had a hard out at this coffee shop. We were shooting there after hours. Our gaffer, shout out Christopher Burke, did amazing work making this space look like daylight when it was 9 o'clock at night. But
Mhm.
we did have a hard out at, 11:30. And so we had to have a tough conversation about the shot list and about what coverage we needed to get at this coffee shop. And that happens. It happens kind of often on
Mhm.
productions. And that's okay, as long as I think you can, anyone that is part of that decision-making set, so the director, the DP, the AD, the producer, um, can take a beat and like calmly
Mhm.
really think through what's needed and
Mhm.
come to a consensus.
One thing I would have done differently is known what known going in what would be cut if we were up against time. So like I didn't have my shots like, okay, these 5 shots I know I can get rid of if I need to going into it. And I think that just knowing what you can cut ahead of time helps with what you were saying earlier. Like you're in a high stress environment, you are needing to move very quickly, you are needing to make decisions. If you've kind of pre-made those decisions for yourself and you know, I'm going to kill this, and this, and I've thought about it during a time when my mind is not thinking a mile a minute and keeping track of every single thing that's going on the set, I think it just makes those moments feel a lot less stressful. There was some stuff that got cut that I am still sad about. We had we had insert shots of lips, eyes, hands, things like that that just would have added, I think, a lot of texture to the scene. And, that is a bummer, but is it 100% necessary for the scene to work? No. Like we did get everything that we needed to build a scene.
As we were running behind on day 1, we did regroup on day 2 and preemptively cut a few things and prioritize a little bit further into what were the must have versus nice to have shots, which definitely served us.
Mhm.
Moving into day 2, location 3,
Yes.
Fort Greene Park.
Yes.
Fort Greene Park in late October.
It was really cold. It was really, really cold. So we were trying to keep our cast warm with hand warmers and tea and things like this, but that was definitely, a curveball that we did our best to plan for, but what can you do?
A couple of pro tips there. Hand warmers, hand warmers, hand warmers. Get tons of hand warmers if you're going to be filming outside and it might be a little chilly throughout filming in the mornings and the evenings. That just goes a long way. I'd even advocate for like having blankets on set if you can, for people to just tuck under while they're waiting. Um, in the call sheet for days like that, when you send out the call sheet the night before, in that email specifying we will be outside all day, please dress warmly, wear layers, hat, gloves, scarf, sweater, coat, long underwear if you have to. Like, definitely be mom.
Yeah, definitely. And it was another day where where things were getting pretty compressed in the afternoon, I would say. There was one moment on the second day, which I think was my biggest learning as a director, where it felt like, it wasn't like day one where we were shooting inside and we were lighting for day and it could be sunlight forever in the magical world of movies. We were shooting outside, the sun is going down. This is a short film that is, taking place not over the course of a full 12-hour day. It needs to all have the same lighting, and we were losing the light. And it was a moment where I really felt like we were going to end our day and not have gotten what we needed at all. And It was, I think, the one moment, I mean, correct me if you think I'm wrong here, that I really kind of, I won't say like lost it or freaked out or, anything like that, but I did kind of panic. And it was so interesting and helpful for me to see how my energy affected the actor's energy. And know and knew in theory that it is my job to be the container for the actors and to let them know that I have them and they are safe. And, I will guide them through this process, this scene, this day, etc. And in the moment where I kind of dropped the container and panicked, I totally lost my one actor in particular. I could just see on Arcadia's face as soon as I kind of freaked that she started to freak.
Mhm.
And luckily it was a quick meeting between you, me, and the DP. You, as always, did a great job about kind of setting the reality of the situation, helping us figure out what decision we needed to make, and then we could make the decision. And ultimately, we did technically make our day. And we did get a lot of really great coverage that ended up being in the final film.
Your job is to direct and to manage the actors and where they're at. My job as the producer, as the lead producer, is to make sure that everyone is feeling taken care of and like they have what they need. And so making sure that you have what you need to move forward is on me. And so in that moment of here's where we're at, this is how we can sort of salvage this moment, for lack of a better word. But I do think like a producer being able to like play spin doctor a little bit and just
Yeah.
like at least in the moment like help the director believe that like this actually is exactly how this is supposed to go
Yeah, 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 yeah,
is
yeah.
super important.
Yeah.
And I also I've been rewatching Ted Lasso, and there's a phrase in the show that I think that applies in sports, but also applies really well in filmmaking. Be a goldfish. Like goldfish have very short memories.
Mhm.
I think it's so important to be able to just kind of forget everything that's come before for the
Mhm.
time being so that you can just focus on what needs to happen next. And to help just shake off anything that's come to that point in production, which is easier said than done, but I do think it's a really helpful mantra.
100%. 100%. Like there is really no time to dwell uh during production. You have to face the reality, make your decisions accordingly, and then move on. And ideally doing that without letting a lot of emotions get in the way. Not that you're not going to be emotional because it is emotional, but that is just such an energy drain. I
Mm.
think at the end of the day, to be side railed by emotions and then to get everyone back, like that is just energy that you're not putting into making your film. And that I think is just something that comes with experience. Like, and certainly I'm not perfect at it yet. I had my moment. And I'm sure there will continue to be moments, but um, yeah, I think it's just something that as you continue making films and as we continue making films, it's just going to be something that gets easier the more you understand that like this is just the process.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. And I will say, yeah, and in addition to us getting this beautiful final scene after that moment, like you got there. You had your moment where it just was all coming at you from all sides, and then we're able to work it through and then get to where you needed to be
Yeah.
to jump back in
Yeah.
and make the most of the time that was left for us as the sun was rapidly setting.
And that is why we did ultimately, after the fact decide to do a half day pickup day.
Mm.
We we did technically make our day. Like we got coverage technically of every scene, but there was one scene in particular where we really just got our master shot, and that is just very challenging to work with in the edit.
Mhm.
I mean, remember, we didn't get any B-roll for this film, so it just would have been really, really tough. And that reshoot that we did, I think, I don't know, it might end up being my favorite scene in the whole film. So I'm so glad that we ended up doing that. And then there was really just one other shot where the lighting was just so, it was nighttime basically when we shot it, and the lighting just would have been so challenging with where it needed to live in the edit. We would have had to get really creative with a dream sequence filter or something like that, and that just wasn't an ideal situation. So we did end up doing that pickup day. It was calm, it was warm, uh, and that ended up being 100% the right decision.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. I agree. Um, so something else I definitely want to chat through from our production experience, that was a really big learning for me. So I chose to produce and AD on this project, based on where budgets were and where I thought it made the most sense to allocate funds. I I chose to take on both roles at once. And on small productions where you're not moving locations and it's things are very simple, that happens. And it's not crazy. It's part of independent filmmaking and being small and scrappy. But I think my biggest learning from this project was know the times that know when you need to bring in a separate AD,
Mhm.
which is going to be often. Um,
Mhm.
but not always, because we we really needed those two roles. We needed, you know, my role as producer that can was problem solving in the moment, and we were working with a child actor and just keeping the energy where it needed to be and making sure everyone had what they needed. But then because it was such an ambitious shoot and such an ambitious shoot schedule, to have an AD there who was like very present and assertive with timing and keeping things moving. Um, I think it would have been a different experience if we had a
Mhm.
dedicated AD, and I definitely own my decision there, and that I did the best I could with everything going on. But it there's a lot of overlap in skill set with producing and ADing, but it's a different sort of energy and attitude on set. An AD is kind of a drill sergeant, it has to be kind of a bulldog, and it's hard to flip between that and then like, playing mama bear and like making sure that everybody is feeling good and feeling taken care of. And so, and you just can't be two places at once. So I think, you know, very important to know and assess when a shoot schedule is aggressive, um, when to make the call to budget for an AD.
100%. 100%. Let's talk about what went well. We've talked about what we learned,
Yeah.
what we would have done differently. Um, what did you love about this shoot?
You go first. What did you love about this shoot?
What will always be my favorite thing, I think, about filmmaking is the community aspect and bringing together and seeing all of the various people that you've hired over email and had conversations over here and had conversations over there come together and work really hard towards this common goal. And everyone has a part to play, and nothing works if one person isn't there. And I love that aspect about it so much. And I'm, the director, but it's up to everybody to make the thing work. And it's really like up to you and I to make sure that the thing is running smoothly together. But yeah, definitely favorite part was community, no doubt. And then, I mean, I think even with the stress of things not moving as quickly as we wanted it to and lighting taking longer than anticipated, the footage looks beautiful. And on the day, we knew it looked beautiful. Like there was not a moment where we were like, oh no, what is gonna happen? Like every shot was stunning. And really the actors were totally nailing it. In particular, like Arcadia and Eloise together is just a dream dynamic and energy. So, you know, it even with things going wrong from a or maybe not going to plan from a timing perspective or things moving slower than we wanted to, it's not like what we were seeing on screen was ever a concern in any way. And that's pretty magical.
Yeah. Yeah. That is magical. And that's, I agree 100% with everything. Walking away with something that is so wonderful, even if there were some moments that were challenging. I think that was a really major learning and something that I will always really value about this project is, I know you and I were both feeling pretty low for a couple days following the shoot, which is not uncommon, but I think because it took so much out of us, it was all of that hard work and a little bit chaotic at certain points. And part of the low was like, did we get it? Do we have it? And apart from the decision to do a pickup day where we got some of the shots that weren't exactly what we wanted, but it wasn't a ton.
Mhm.
Like we did walk away with something beautiful. And so I think that is so it's important to know, and it's a learning I will carry with me for the rest of my life is you always want to make sure you have a good environment on set, but just because there are moments, maybe some negative moments, it will not necessarily affect the final product.
100%. Yeah. I feel like, you've heard about big movie
Yeah.
sets that are just disaster and you're like, but look
Yeah.
at the film that came out of it? So yeah, certainly when we zoom out, by and large, the process was wonderful. I think it was because pre-production was going so well and we were loving rehearsals and all of this. It was almost like the first bump came on production and we were like, oh,
Yeah.
oh, what's gonna happen now? Um, and ultimately, we reacted and it was fine. But yeah, that post-shoot blues, I call them, are very real. And I think it's a combination of things didn't go perfectly, which newsflash, they never will. But you're ruminating on them. And also, though, just production being over and the
Mm.
come down from that, like you are working a million miles a minute in pre-production. There is something to do every single day to make sure that you're ready to go. And then, you're in production and it's this wonderful community feeling and you're making magic together, and then it's over. And, of course, there's post-production, which we'll get into in the next episode, but production being over, that has impacted me so much on all of my projects, including commercial projects. I get the post-shoot blues on commercial projects too. Like, it's almost like, well, now what do I do with myself? I had such a role for the
Yeah.
last, number of weeks, and now I'm just spit out on the other side, and I'm like, well, who am I? What am I supposed to do with myself now?
Totally, totally. I feel the same way. And I would also add that like it is also such an emotional labor as a
Mm.
director, as a producer. You are in various ways taking taking care of other people, and you have to hold yourself to a different standard of how you are presenting and projecting and keeping your energy at such a level that everyone else needs to match to keep moving forward. That by the end of it, your tank is empty.
Yeah, but it is very interesting, kind of the emotional labor of the whole thing, in addition to the nuts and bolts of it all.
Well, any final words about the production process itself, aka principal photography?
I don't think so. I feel like we covered it. It is so fun. you know, I know we kind of talked about the labor of it all, but it is just so magical. So enjoy it.
Yeah, here.
Okay.
Um,
Well, next
oh,
episode, it's post-production. We're moving right along.
yeah, moving right along as we did on this film.
We sure did. The train did not stop on this one.
Not yet. It did not stop. It did not slow down.
No, it did not. Okay,
Oh,
we'll see you next time.